Hello everyone. In this video we're going to talk a little bit about citations. Up to this point in the class I've asked you to put your sources in correct APA format, but we haven't actually gone over what that means. This means I haven't graded you on whether or not things are in correct APA format. However, after this week, you'll have a chance to learn more about what that means and to practice using APA style. And from this moment forward, I will be grading you on this. Citations can feel a little bit tedious, but they are really an important part of the research process. And in other research and writing courses you take within the Communication Studies department, there will be an expectation that you know what a citation source is and how to use that correctly and consistently. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about, why citations are important and how they can be useful, a little bit about citations and different disciplines, citation generators, other resources that might be available to you, and then we're going to spend some time looking at a specific citation guide called OWL Purdue that I'm asking you to use in this class. And so I'll walk you through how that looks and how you can use that to correctly cite your sources in your paper. So like many things, it is useful to start in the library. And one of the things you can find in the library is some information about citing sources. So the library points out, this webpage points out that there are a couple important reasons that we use citations. One of the most important ones is that it is the way that we acknowledge other people's ideas. This allows us to avoid plagiarism. So that's a pretty good reason to cite sources. You need to cite not just when you use direct quotes from a source, but any time that you use an idea that is not yours or something that just is common knowledge. You need to cite it. It also is super useful. Citations are super useful if you're just trying to find more resources. So I've mentioned before in this class the way in which research is really a public endeavor. It is a social event. That one of the things that researchers are doing is engaging in conversations with other researchers and other scholars. And one way to think about scholarly research articles is, how is this author, constructing a conversation or having a conversation with other people who study a similar topic in the area. And that's super useful because that is what you'll be expected to do also in research papers. It's what you're going to be expected to do in the literature review that you write for me in this class. And you'll have this expectation in other research classes too, is to be able to define what is the scholarly conversation around this topic. And one of the places you know who these authors are in conversation with is in their reference lists. And better than just knowing who they're in conversation with, you also can use this information to go find those sources yourself to use them in your own paper. So, for instance, I might have read something in this article from where the author has cited Berkowitz and Schwartz. I really love what they're saying there, and I think that would really help me better develop a sense of what this scholarly conversation looks like. So with this information here, I can go and find that article really easily. All I need to know is the journal title. I can go to the library. There's already a video on this, so review it if you need to. I can go to the journal title. I can search for journal by title. From there, I can click on the year that it was published. I can go find the volume. I can look for the title of the article or the authors, or I can scroll down and get to the correct page numbers. Very easy ways to quickly find a source that I'm looking for. So those are two really important reasons that we do cite sources. Another question that comes up is, what style should you use? In this class, I'm asking you guys to use APA style. There are some links here to helpful websites in figuring out what that looks like. If you've taken English classes in the past, you've probably been expected to use MLA style. Most of the time in humanities, they utilize this style within that discipline. In the social sciences, they tend to use APA. In history, you're oftentimes expected to use Chicago. So different disciplines use different types of styles. Lucky or unlucky for you, you are in communication studies. And one thing we'll talk a little bit more about in the future in this course is that communication studies actually can be either a humanistic discipline or a social science. We have researchers in both of those areas. And so that means that you may have some professors who prefer you to use APA, and some professors who prefer you to use MLA. Many of our professors will actually say, I don't care what you use, as long as you use it correctly and consistently. So while we're using APA in this class, you should think of this as learning to use a style correctly and consistently. Once you know that, it's not that hard to simply go to another guide and follow the rules that are laid out there. The other thing on this website that I just want to draw your attention to is citation generators. Many students use these. I think you can even, when you're finding articles in the library databases, oftentimes click on a button that says cite this in X style, and it will generate a citation for you right there. That's a great place to start because these generators will often include all the information you need, and they'll usually include it in the order that you need it. That said, I have graded way too many of these things to know that mistakes will be made in these generators. Mistakes with capitalization, with italicization, they won't always be correct. So while it's great to start with these tools, it's not great to end with them. So once you have generated citations through these, I would always go back and check that they were correct. So I want to just jump in. So you can find other resources here. If you prefer to use actual books, there are tons of reference guides, style guides in the library that you can access as well. But we're going to talk specifically about OWL Purdue, which is a really useful online resource that provides you with access to many different styles, citation styles, and guides for formatting those. So you can see here I can access APA here, MLA, or Chicago. Because we're using APA here, we're going to go here. So some information to pay attention to, they have workshops, you can access videos, so there's a lot of material here to help you learn how to format and cite correctly within a certain style. This one here is going to be the most important, I guess, button for you, because this one will include the formatting and style guide in full. And a few things to pay attention to are, just sort of general formatting issues. You can find here information about how to organize your, say, format your title page correctly. Here's a nice little example. You can read about what should be included and how you should format it right here. They'll talk about abstracts in this section. You won't have to turn in an abstract for me in this class with your paper, but you'll be expected to do that in other research classes, so it's a useful thing to look at. I also think just useful is if you look at here and scroll down to the bottom of this, you will see just some types of APA papers. You'll see information on how to organize your headings or how to format headings. even if you need to make a PowerPoint slide presentation, how to do that accurately in APA. And you'll see a sample paper. And for me, this is really useful just to look at. Okay, so this is how I'm supposed to format it. They'll give you examples. Here's what you include here. Here's what you include here. You scroll down in, I guess you'll need to scroll down here. It will show you the abstract, what it looks like. It will show you, here's where the paper goes. Here's how I need to set it up. Here's how I need to do my headings. Here's how I need to cite sources within my paper. So this is super useful, I think. So don't discount using those example papers. The two things that you'll look at for me in this class most specifically are two types of citations that you'll be expected to use. In-text citations, so when you're writing about a source in your paper, what do? And then reference lists. So when you go to in-text citations, it'll tell you some basic information that's important to know, like how do I talk about sources? Do I use past or present tense? That can be kind of confusing because you're writing about it in the present, but they have written their papers already in the past. So it gives you some information on how to handle that, some information about citation, capitalization, things like that. But most important here is, if I'm using a quote from a source, what do I do with it, right? Whenever you are quoting a source directly, you're going to always have to have a page number. If I mention the author's name in the sentence, then I simply follow it up with the year of publication, and at the end I put the page number. If I am not mentioning the author's name specifically in a sentence, then I simply write the quote and follow it up with the author name, the year, and the page number. Well, what about a long quote? This tells you information about how to do that. What if I'm not quoting, I'm simply summarizing or paraphrasing? You still have to cite it. How do you do it? Well, if I've used the author name in the paper, this is how I do it. If I haven't, this is how I do it. So basic guidelines, easy to follow. The other thing you have to think about, if you're looking for, well, what do I do if there's more than one author? This is the button you click on. What about reference lists? Some basic rules here are important to pay attention to. Things like alphabetize, what kind of spacing do I use between sources, those kinds of things. So pay attention to that. But generally, if I'm looking at a reference list, how I use this is I find the kind of source that I'm looking for. So for instance, if I need to cite a book, it's a book that I'm citing, then I go to basic book format. Pay attention to author first names, only initial. The title of the book is italicized, but notice I'm not capitalizing every letter in the title. Location and publisher. For the most part, most of you will be using articles published in a periodical. So journal articles, anything published periodically throughout the year, this includes scholarly journals, would fall under this category. Again, you notice author names, how they're formatted. The title of the article, not italicized, notice the capitalization. The title of the periodical, or that might mean journal title. Notice capitalization, italicization. Volume, issue number, pages. And in APA, we use DOI number. We don't use retrieved from. So that's a big difference with MLA. So this is the basic form. I might need to scroll down and find the specifics for what works with my journal. Maybe it's a journal that only has a volume. Maybe it's a journal that has also an issue. Maybe it's a magazine. Maybe it's a newspaper. So if I scroll down, I'm likely to find an example of the type of source that I am trying to cite. So that's the basics of how you use this resource to help you cite in correct format. So please take some time to look over it. I will expect that you are doing it correctly from here on out.